Hey everyone, I am so sorry that this is the way that we have to start our fourth class session. But at least we can learn if this is going to be an option in the future if this happens again. So we'll see how this goes with the video, and if no one understands anything that I say, then we'll make it up next week. And I'll know that this may not be the best situation for us. You're probably going to hear some background noise. I'm upstairs of my house, which does not have a door, so I'm sure you'll hear lots of movies and screaming in the background. But anyway, we'll do what we can. And I see here that Davis has already messed with my board. That's okay. Apologize for the handwriting. I'm going to stretch there. All right, so I was going to begin this class with a game, a review game. So we will skip that and we will move on to what we have to cover this week. I was going to also have some volunteers come up and review our first and second declensions from the past weeks. And I'll just review them right now with you. So we have the I, ah, I, ah, I, ah, singular first declension. And then we have the I, arum, is, I, arum, is, I, arum, is, plural, first declension. And then our second declension. Notice these are groups. These are families. That's what we want to think of them as families. So our second family, we have more of a duplex house because we have a second declension male, masculine, and a second declension neuter. The S and P, singular and plural. And here we have us, o, us, o, us, o, singular, second declension. Then we have orum, os, orum, os, orum, os, second, plural, second declension, plural. All right, so I'm trying to sing it, but I really don't want to because I'm on video. And then we have our second neuter, and it's pretty much the same, except our plural form is instead of e, and our accusative plural is instead of os. All right, so this week we are entering our third declension, and from what I understand, it can be the trickiest of the declensions. So I think it's going to be broken down. I haven't looked too far ahead, but I think we're going to be talking more about the third declension next week. So this is just the beginning. And here we have our third declension. It consists of feminine, male, and neuter. Masculine. I keep saying male. I mean masculine and neuter. And that's what makes it so tricky, is that it can have all the genders. Now, genders are eventually going to be very important when we begin working with adjectives. And they will need to match the noun that they are describing. That's why we are learning the rules for finding the gender noun. And notice the third declension has no regular ending in the nominative singular. So when we learned this, we said, our song, let me see if I can remember it. Various is, E-M-E, various is, E-M-E, various is, E-M-E. singular third declension. There it is. I was trying to think of the order. Ace, ibis, ace, ibis, ace, ibis, ace, ibis, ace, ibis, ace, ibis, plural third declension. So various is not an ending. Various tells us that the nominative singular will vary, and so there is not always an ending that we can put there. We can recognize the third declension by the genitive singular, is. So when we see is at the end of a word in Latin, we will know it is third declension. We will not know its gender yet, but we will know that it is from the third declension. Now, to determine what gender our words are in the third declension, we need to follow some rules. And the first rule is the natural gender rule. That's basically our rules that we learned the first week of Latin, is if the noun is naturally feminine or masculine, then that's what it is. For example, when we had mostly feminine vocabulary words in the first declension, except for sailor, which we attributed the masculine gender to. So in examples like that, we're going to figure out when we look at a word in Latin, our first question, is it naturally female or is it naturally male or masculine? If neither is obvious, then we go to the nominative singular ending and follow additional rules. If the nominative singular ends in S, O, X, then it will be given the feminine gender. And I think there are some things out there like girls have great socks is how you can, one way you can remember that. Women have great socks or something like that. If our nominative singular Latin noun ends in ER or OR, then it will be masculine. And they also use the word error, just ER, ROR, to help remember that masculine, what ending would make a noun masculine. Lastly, if a noun in Latin ends in L or A or N or C or E or T, it will be neuter. And that is how we determined the gender for a third declension noun. So the main things you have to remember are these. First, is it naturally feminine or masculine? Ask yourself that. Second, if it's not obvious which one it is, then you look at the nominative singular ending and follow these rules. Ends in S or O or X, it's going to be feminine. If the nominative singular ending is ER or OR, it's going to be masculine. If it's L or A or N or C or E or T, it's going to be neuter. Now, some nouns will be declined with these endings here, and some will be with these. These are called I stem. And notice the only difference between a third declension I stem from just a regular third declension is the genitive plural I-U-M. And some of your vocabulary, these words this week, will have an I stem. To determine the I stem, first let's go back and let's discuss syllables. All right, so we're going to look over here at banana, cat, kitty, and goat. How many syllables does banana have? Well, to figure that out, how many vowel sounds do we hear when we say banana? We hear 3 vowel sounds, right? So we're going to give banana 3 syllables. Cat, we only hear 1 vowel sound. So we're going to say 1 syllable here. Kitty, now we only see 1 vowel, but we hear 2 vowel sounds. Sometimes Y can sound like a vowel. So we're going to count that as 2 syllables because we hear 2 vowel sounds. Here we see 2 vowels, but we only hear 1 vowel sound. So goat is 1 syllable. There can only be 1 vowel sound per syllable. Now, to determine if a noun has an I stem, first we got to look at the stem. How do we find the stem? By looking at the genitive singular. Once we find the genitive singular, then we're going to ask ourselves 2 things. We're going to ask ourselves, does the stem end in 2 consonants? Yes or no? If, then we're going to move on to number 2. Do the 2 forms, nominative and genitive, are the forms that I'm talking about. Those are the forms that are written on your flashcards. Do they have the same number of syllables? It is an I stem only if it meets at least one of these rules. It doesn't have to meet both. All right, so let's look at some vocabulary for this week. And let's try to figure out whether or not it's in the third declension and if it has an I stem. So here I'm looking at Rex and Regis. Regis, I haven't looked at my vocabulary yet to know if that G is a J or a G sound. But I will do that and get back to you on that. But the first thing I want to do is figure out, okay, here is is. I see that it ends in IS in the genitive. This is our nominative, this is our genitive. I see that we have an IS in the genitive. All right, that tells me it's third declension, first and foremost. Then I have to determine the gender. All right, so if I'm going to determine the gender of Rex or Regis, I'm going to have to follow these rules over here. My nominative singular is X. And so I'm looking here, and the ending is an X. The ending here is an X. So that tells me this is feminine. And we know it's third. And now we need to determine if it is an I stem noun. So now we're going to ask ourselves, does it end in 2 consonants? And we're only going to look at the stem for this question. R-E-G. It does not end in 2 consonants. Now for rule number 2, we're going to look at both whole words. Do the 2 forms, nominative and genitive, have the same number of syllables? Here we have Rex, we have 1, and Regis, which is 2. So they do not have the same number of syllables. So this is not an I stem. Okay, let's look at lex and legis. And let's ask our selves first, what declension does this belong to? I see that it belongs to the third declension because of the is, genitive singular. Okay, now I need to find what gender it is. So I'm going to look over here, and I see that the nominative singular ends in X. So that tells me that this word is feminine. Now I need to figure out if it's an I stem. I'm going to go to the genitive singular, which is leg, and I'm going to ask myself, does the stem end in two consonants? It ends in EG, so no. And now, do the two forms together have the same number of syllables? And the answer is no. So it is not an I stem here either. Now let's look at our third word. We have pars and partis. I'm looking at the genitive singular to find my declension. And now I'm trying to find out what my gender is. So I'm going to look at my nominative singular, and it ends in S. So again, that tells me that's feminine. And now I'm going to find the stem by looking at the genitive singular. And does the stem end in two consonants? Yes. Now, an I stem only needs to meet one of the two rules. Technically, I don't have to go to rule number 2. I've just discovered that this is an I stem noun. But for fun, let's do it anyway. Do the two forms have the same number of syllables? Pars, partis. The answer is no here. But because one of the two questions that I asked myself ends up being yes, then we have an I stem right here. So let's discuss just an overview of everything that we've learned about a third declension noun. Just like all the other declensions, it has 5 endings. They have singular and plural. One of the main differences is our nominative singular varies both in the singular third declension and the third declension I stem. To determine masculine or feminine is the role of the noun naturally male or female? If neither, look at the nominative singular ending and follow the rules. Here are the rules. If it ends in S or O or X, it will be feminine. If it ends in ER or OR, it will be masculine. And if it ends in L or A, N or C or E or T, it will be neuter. We look at genitive singular to determine the correct declension. And to determine if it has an I stem, we look at the consonant and syllable rules. Here's our consonant rule, here's our syllable rule. And the I stem only changes the genitive plural of a word. So even if you discover that it is an I stem, the only thing that will change in the translation is if you're using this part, this ending, genitive plural. All right, I am going to pause right now and see if there's anything else that I want to cover other than making y'all hold on and wait.